The observation deck of Station Kepler 9 hummed with the usual symphony of alien languages, but today it carried something unusual. Laughter. Pure, unfiltered laughter that rippled through the transparent corridors like a contagious melody. Instructor Lyra Hain stood at the center of the xenopedagogy wing, surrounded by a dozen fuzzy creatures no taller than her waist. The Velcor cubs, with their silver-blue fur and three-fingered hands, watched her with enormous violet eyes that reflected curiosity and wonder. This was her third rotation teaching at the Intergalactic Youth Exchange program, and she'd learned that the universal language wasn't mathematics or music, it was joy. "All right. Everyone," Lyra said, clapping her hands together. The sound made several cubs jump, their ear tufts twitching. "Today we're going to learn about human greetings." Elder Counselor Thexva, a towering Velcor with silver streaks in his fur, observed from the doorway. His species had been spacefaring for millennia, had mapped 3 galaxies, and had diplomatic relations with over 600 sentient species. Yet they'd never encountered humans until 5 years ago, when Earth finally achieved faster-than-light travel through sheer stubbornness and duct tape. As the saying went, the human concept of touching for greeting purposes remains unsettling, Thexva had warned the program director. "Our people exchange pheromone signatures. Physical contact is reserved for family units only." But the director, a wise Quellan with bioluminescent skin, had simply smiled. "Let Instructor Hain work. Humans have a gift for making the uncomfortable feel natural." Now, watching Lyra crouch down to cub level, Thexva understood what the director meant. There was something disarming about her genuine warmth. The way she treated each cub as if they were the most important being in the universe. "On Earth, when we meet friends or celebrate something awesome, we do this," Lyra explained, raising her right hand high above her head. "We call it a high five. You lift your hand," she demonstrated, "and your friend lifts their hand. And then," she looked around for a volunteer. Cub Fen, the smallest of the litter but with the brightest eyes, stepped forward. His ear tufts quivered with barely contained excitement. Fen had been the first cub to volunteer for everything since Lyra's arrival. The first to try Earth food. He'd loved peanut butter but found chocolate unnecessarily complex. The first to attempt speaking English with his chirping accent. And now the first to try this strange, touching ritual. "Ready, Fen?" Lyra asked, her hand still raised. Fen lifted his small 3-fingered hand, mimicking her position. His violet eyes locked onto hers with absolute trust. "Now we bring them together. Not too hard, not too soft. Right in the middle." Their hands met with a satisfying smack that echoed through the wing. "High five!" Fen's eyes went wide. His fur rippled with the Velcor equivalent of a blush. Then unexpectedly, he let out a trill of pure delight that had every adult Velcor in the corridor stopping in their tracks. Cubs didn't trill. Trilling was a deeply emotional expression reserved for mating bonds or profound spiritual experiences. "Again. Again!" Fen chirped, bouncing on his hind legs. Lyra laughed and obliged. Smack. "High five!" Smack. "High five!" Soon every cub in the class was lining up, their small hands raised, eager to experience this strange human custom. Thexva watched in fascination as something remarkable unfolded. The cubs weren't just mimicking, they were feeling something. Each time a hand connected with Lyra's, each time she shouted, "High five!" With unrestrained enthusiasm, the cubs' bioluminescent spots, tiny dots along their spines that typically only glowed during sleep, began to shimmer with happiness. By the end of the lesson, Fen had appointed himself the High Five ambassador. He stood by the classroom door, his small hand raised, offering every passing being the chance to participate in this wonderful human tradition. The first victim was Dr. Calex, a Thornian scholar with 4 arms and a notoriously sour disposition. He'd been complaining about human contamination of pure xenological study for weeks. "High five." Fen chirped, his hand up, his expression hopeful. Dr. Calex looked at the cub, then at his own upper right hand, then back at the cub. With a sigh that sounded like steam escaping a pipe, he tapped his palm against Fen's. The smack was half-hearted at best, but Fen's reaction was anything but half-hearted. He trilled again, his spots glowing so brightly that Dr. Calex actually smiled. A terrifying sight involving too many teeth, but a smile nonetheless. "Adequate," the Thornian muttered, but Thexva noticed he used all 4 hands to return the gesture to the other waiting cubs before leaving. Within a week, the phenomenon had spread. Cubs waited at every junction of Station Kepler 9, hands raised offering high fives to anyone who passed. And beings from 100 different worlds found themselves stopping, pausing their important research or diplomatic missions to smack their appendages against a small cub's hand. The hive-minded Zentari, who'd never understood individual greetings, developed a synchronized wave where all 47 of their collective's members would high-five a cub in sequence. The crystalline shard folk, who communicated through light refraction, figured out how to create a harmonic chime when their silicon hands met organic ones. Even the gaseous whisper beings, who had no solid form, learned to compress their matter just enough to create a satisfying whoosh when a cub's hand passed through them. Director Quellen found Lyra in the observation lounge one evening, watching Fen teach a group of newly arrived adult diplomats the proper high-five technique. The cub was incredibly serious about it, correcting their hand positions and insisting on proper enthusiasm. "You've started something," the director said, her bioluminescence pulsing with amusement. Lyra shrugged, a smile playing at her lips. "It's just a high five." "No," the director corrected gently. "It's much more than that. Do you know what Elder Counselor Thexva told me yesterday? He said that in 3,000 years of Velcor space exploration, they've perfected the science of diplomacy, trade, and war. But they'd forgotten the art of simple joy. Physical touch was something they'd evolved away from, something they considered primitive." She gestured to where Fen was now celebrating a successful high five by doing a small victory dance. Much to the bewilderment and delight of a Centaurian ambassador, that cub has greeted over 1,500 beings this week, 1,500 different species, cultures, and belief systems, and every single one of them has walked away smiling, or whatever their species does to express happiness. You didn't teach them a greeting, Instructor Hain. You taught them connection. Lyra watched as Fen finally noticed her in the observation lounge. His whole face lit up and he came bounding over, hand already raised. She met him halfway and their high five echoed through the chamber. "High five," they shouted together. Thexva, who'd been standing in the shadows, stepped forward. Slowly, deliberately, he raised his own hand. Fen's eyes went even wider. This was an elder, someone important, someone who normally maintained dignified distance. The smack when their hands met wasn't loud, but it resonated through the station like a bell. Thexva's spots glowed for the first time in decades, and Fen trilled so loudly that every cub in 3 corridors came running to see what caused such joy. Later, in her quarters, Lyra recorded a message for Earth. Mission log: Instructor Lyra Hain, Day 147, taught alien cubs a high five today. They've now taught it to half the station. Humanity's first major cultural export to the galaxy isn't our technology, our art, or our philosophy. It's a simple gesture that says, "I see you, I celebrate you, we share this moment of joy together." She paused, then smiled. "I think that's pretty fucking awesome." Outside her window, Station Kepler 9 glittered against the cosmic dark. And somewhere in its corridors, Cub Fen stood at his post, hand raised, ready to welcome the universe one high five at a time. Because that's what humans taught them. That connection doesn't require translation, that joy needs no explanation, and that sometimes the most profound diplomatic gesture is simply meeting someone halfway with an open hand and an open heart. Smack. High five.